We have a roll call, getting to my left.
Tony Miles.
Phyllis Kaiser. Brenda Randolph, Oklahoma.
Danielle Newton.
In honor of Johnny Moss, we have established a quorum. Can we just adjust the volume and get a little feedback? All right, at this time is a very important era in the Seven City School System as we interview our top 5 finalists for the new superintendent, to be new superintendent of Seven City Schools. We have an outstanding group of finalists, and we're excited to interview them today and tomorrow. Housekeeping rules, we ask that you please do not video the interviews, as well as please curtail any applause or cheers until our interview has been completed. Attorney Campbell, did you have anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. It is really a pleasure to have such outstanding candidates. As the President said, we have 5 outstanding candidates. We were fortunate enough to actually have 2 local candidates that will be presenting to you. This will begin by the candidate, the first 5 minutes they have to introduce themselves in any way they choose. They can have a PowerPoint. They don't have to have a PowerPoint. It's just up to the individual. And then you will proceed with the questions. You would ask Mr. Moss if he would set the tone and the pace and where we will begin. And when it comes to the board members, you just ask the next question. And we actually have more questions than we plan to ask tonight, but we do want to run to at least 3 rounds of questions. And then at the end, we will, Mr. Moss will close this out and see closing questions. Any questions?
So this time, we'll turn it over to Mrs. Sister Curtis for 5 minutes of introduction.
Thank you so much to the board, to those who are here. I want to first say that I am incredibly honored, humbled, and excited to be a finalist for Selma City Schools, superintendent, and just grateful. As a native and product of Selma City Schools, I could not be more invested in our student and district success. And I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. I am Cicely Curtis. I love God. I love my family. I love my students. I love Selma. I love teaching and learning. I love Selma. I'm a Christian and believer. And my faith compels me to love. My faith compels me, my relationship with God compels me to make God choices. My choices, decisions will be led by prayer, also by policy, that's board policy, and as well as best practices. I have a family of educators who are products of Selma City Schools. I am also a product of Selma City Schools. I was reared in preschool, elementary, also middle school and high school. A graduate of Selma High in 1995. I graduated from Selma High School. And my husband also is a graduate of Selma High School, a product of Selma City Schools. Been at Selma Police Department for 26 years now. We are invested in Selma, in the community, and stand here. We have 2 houses in Selma. We live here. We don't plan on leaving, going anywhere. I bring stability to leadership. I have been in Selma City Schools for 17 years now. 1 district, Selma City Schools, the entire time of my 17 years of education. And being here, Selma has nurtured me, has groomed me with greatness. I am very appreciative for that. I attended, after graduating from high school in '95 at Selma High, I went to college, finished at Concordia College, my bachelor's degree in early childhood and elementary education, after which I attended Alabama State for instructional leadership. And right after that, my education career started in Selma City Schools as an AmeriCorps member at Edgewood Elementary. I mentored and taught basic computer literacy skills, after which I became a 4th grade teacher at Edgewood Elementary School for 7 years. Heard about Mr. Larkin at Clark and the awesome things he was doing there. Wanted more, wanted better. So asked to transfer, my current principal then, I asked to transfer to Clark. He granted me that wish. I worked at Clark as a 4th grade teacher for 1 year. After that year, I was asked to be instructional coach at Clark. I was instructional coach for 1 year. After that, I finished my degree at Alabama State for instructional leadership and interviewed for assistant principal at R.B. Hudson, was granted that position, worked at R.B. Hudson a year. After that year, interviewed to be a principal at R.B. Hudson, and I was asked to go to School of Discovery instead. Went to School of Discovery, worked there for 4 years. Great strides, great gains, academic gains at School of Discovery under my leadership. In just 3 years, we moved from a grade, when I went to School of Discovery, it was a focus school. The report card grade was a 61. In less than 3 years, we moved to a C, a letter grade. Before leaving School of Discovery, we scored a 77. Our last report card grade was 77, almost a B. And that was missing one of our core teachers, absent a core teacher, which myself and our assistant principal at the time, we went in and taught classes ourselves to make sure that scholars did not lose any instruction during that time. So I do think if we had that core teacher, we could have made score to be on our report card grade. So that's a little bit about my history. I want to say that my commitment to Selma City Schools has not wavered in 17 years. It's sort of like a family. You know how in your family, you can talk about your family, but no one else, you better not talk about them. I can talk about them, but outsiders cannot. That's my commitment to Selma City Schools. I may say something, but anyone, parents, or anyone else can tell you, I have defended Selma City, and I plan to continue to defend Selma City Schools because, again, my commitment to Selma City Schools has not wavered. I want to quickly talk about my educational philosophy that has evolved. I'll stop there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis. At this time, we'll be asking questions. Sure, board members will be taking notes, so if we're writing, it's not that we're not, just want to jot down notes and information that you provide us. And I'll start with first under the category of superintendent board relationships. What are the methods you will use to keep yourself and the board current on important matters?
Well, I would make sure that the board, including myself, attend trainings, workshops and conferences that are available to keep us abreast on important matters and evidence-based practices. I will also, Dr. Mackey sent out weekly updates. I will also send forward the board those weekly updates from Dr. Mackey, as well as have brief discussions about those updates. In addition, I will make sure that the lines of communication are open and clear between myself and the board. I will set up procedures at the very front end to see what is the best way to get information to the board. How do you desire to receive that information? I will also make sure that I'm very transparent. That's my modus operandi, is to be transparent. So I will make sure that I'm transparent and we're working as a collaborative team to keep you all abreast with the important matters.
Thank you. Curriculum instruction, question number 1. How would you determine the strengths and weaknesses of the instructional programs, and how would you go about making changes in the instructional programs? Walk us through a specific experience, the strategies, program tools you employ, and the resulting data.
How would I determine the strengths and weaknesses of the instructional program? I would look at current student achievement data to determine the strengths and weaknesses. I would also look at the implementation to see if it's effective. I would listen to views of staff who have implemented the program. In comparison, I would compare that program to results of previous programs that we have. And we will also look at expected results. What were the outcomes, expected results or outcomes that we were looking at? And did we meet those goals or expected outcomes to determine the strengths and weaknesses of that program? For example, we had a leadership meeting with iReady at R.B. Hudson, and it was all of the principals. We analyzed data and with the representative looked at the many capabilities of iReady that we were not even familiar with because we have so many programs currently in the district, so we're not using the program that we really have to fidelity. So that meeting, I think, was in January, asked the representative many questions about iReady to kind of measure the strengths and weaknesses of iReady. I asked him, well, can we use iReady for intervention? Because currently we're using Voyager, and I wanted to know, could we do away with some of these programs? So I asked him that question to find out, and found out that we definitely can use iReady for all of those tiered levels of instruction. In addition, I would say looking at formative and summative data, surveying our administrators, our teachers who are delivering that instruction, and compiling and analyzing data to make the necessary adjustments along the way.
This is question 2 under curriculum instructional development. I'm sorry. Okay. Mrs. Curtis, what is the role of the superintendent in stimulating faculty towards professional growth and self-improvement? Outline the types of programs you feel would improve adequate professional growth and development for the staff.
Okay, and looking at the role the superintendent has in stimulating the faculty towards professional growth, the superintendent should take a lead role in modeling and promoting professional development district-wide for all employees. The PD should be needs-based. At the end of each year, we complete a needs assessment in our schools to find out exactly what our needs are. What is it that our teachers need, all departments. And I will look at, the superintendent should look at those needs assessments with the team and decide what professional development is needed and make sure that professional development is personalized for those particular schools. So the superintendent should take a lead role in the buildings. The superintendent should make sure that we communicate clear goals for the principals to relate to the teachers, that we're equipped to communicate very clear and concise procedures, even towards developing our professional learning plans as principals and also as teachers, because our programs change. Provide a schedule to be sure the entire district is following through with the POP process, and also provide that support to the teachers. I think that's very needed. And district-wide PD, provide surveys to the employees to see what determine the areas of support and place employees in tiers to provide that support in PD according to using job alikes, remote learning days, staff PD. And as far as programs, professional growth, we know now is needed in phonics. We have our law with third grade, phonics, vocabulary, and comprehension instruction. in all elementary schools. We have a new ELA program, Amplify. We have new math program that I think started last year, My Math. So meeting and building our students in math is needed, so the superintendent must take a lead role in promoting professional development. That is a must.
And Ms. Curtis, my question is loaded, so it's like parts. I'm not asking in parts, so you'll be able to make sure you can get a clear answer. Given your research on Selma City Schools, what innovative strategies and approaches will you employ to increase student achievement, quality education, facilities, and effective use of funding? That's one question, so you want to answer that question?
Will you repeat that question again?
Given your research on Selma City Schools, what innovative strategies and approaches will you employ to increase student achievement, quality education, facilities, and effective use of funding?
I would, one way to improve or increase student achievement is project-based learning, vertical alignment meetings across the district, where teachers, we are planning at the very beginning in the summer, proceeding with planning for our scholars, and project-based learning school-wide. Because with project-based learning, our scholars are going to be engaged in across the curriculum, not engaged in disciplines in isolation. So project-based learning is definitely a way that I would look at improving engagement and student achievement. Also, ACAP practices. A lot of times we wait too late to start practicing for ACAP. Well, research shows, and we have schools. We have schools that I network with, neighboring schools, who start practicing day one, prepare for the ACT day one. They don't wait. So getting with the teachers, the administrators, and building ACAP practices from the very beginning of the year, making sure that we look at data to inform our decisions, intervention, making sure intervention is built into the schedule. There's personalized instruction to support and reach scholars where they are while enriching the others. That's what project-based learning would do for our scholars. Also, I think it's important, the quality improvement and quality of education, we must include our parents. Our trainings for our parents, our parent facilitator, in that role, refocusing it and making sure our parent facilitator has been a teacher before. And that parent facilitator can teach our parents, have scheduled meetings every month, twice a month, in one central location for our parents to come out and be trained. How can I better assist my child with testing, with data? How can I read my child's data? Some parents don't even know to request their children's data. So making sure our parents are fully trained and know their rights and know how to request it, and knowing that we are readily available for them. We are training our parents. Our facilities, I think that was one of your questions as well, Dr. Mouse. With facilities, I would say that keeping maintenance up on all of our buildings. All buildings have needs. Getting with the operations director, maintenance department, and principal, all collaborate to prioritize facility needs to be repaired in an order, and making sure that that's done in phases until it's complete. Quality of education, making sure our teachers are trained. Professional development is important for continuous improvement, so that's a must. SEL instruction comes to mind as well, and on-site counseling for our students, more behavior specialists at our schools, maybe one per building to address the needs that our students have. Also, I think you mentioned, Dr. Miles, effective use of funding. I think that looking at our allocations, looking at our district priorities, and making sure that they are aligned with our money, our funding, our budget is aligned with our district priorities. That is a must, and making sure that we look at student achievement first and foremost, because we know that that is an area of great concern in Selma City Schools.
Well, Ms. Curtis, look like you took all my questions and answered them in one. Because the next one was gonna be, what does that look like? So you gave us that in that answer. Thank you.
And I would even go as far as looking at athletics, where you talk about funding. Looking at athletics, some things that we can go ahead and do, be proactive in doing right now. Not waiting to decide how our scholars are going to be fed for the year. We have our basketball schedule, we have our football schedule. Being proactive, getting those partners ahead of time, giving them a schedule, and deciding who's going to do what for our scholars. So all of that we're funding as well. Looking at fundraisers for the year, meeting with our athletic director, our principals. Let's look at fundraisers, because that deals with funding as well. And as far as innovation too, focusing on robotics and STEM education is another way that I would increase student engagement in our schools. And again, the use of funds should be aligned with our district priorities and our mission and our vision.
Thank you.
The next question kind of piggybacks the previous question. Given your research of Selma City Schools, what are 3 top priorities to produce those measurable outcomes that Dr. Miles mentioned? Student achievement, quality of education, facilities, and effective use of funding. What are the top 3 priorities?
I would say making sure that we are familiar with student achievement data is definitely a priority, and using the data to drive the instruction and set our goals is very important. And then making sure our teachers are data driven. They know how to read data, because I tell teachers all the time, if you're teaching and your data doesn't inform your next steps, then that's not good teaching. So we must teach our teachers how to read data, be data informed, and also be a database district. Our funding, whatever we spend our money on, the data needs to inform that. We shouldn't be haphazardly buying and spending, but being familiar with student data. Also, Ms. Wu, I would say providing immediate professional development and support to teachers and our directors that's identified by areas outlined as weaknesses according to the data. For our scholars, provide enrichment opportunities for them. Making sure that intervention is in place when it's needed and not waiting until January to put those interventions in place. But building intervention in our schedule in August. Getting with our counselors, making sure that we're intentional about building our schedules with our scholars' data in mind. And number 3, I would say, to involve our parents. I can't say that enough. Student achievement is going to happen more rapidly when we involve our parents, and our parents are truly trained and know how to read data, and the resources are readily available for our parents. So involving our parents in the entire process to improve student achievement. And again, training them on reading that data. Making sure our parents are as fluent as we are. That's our responsibility as educators, and we have to do a better job of that. And I say to you that as your superintendent, I'm committed to doing that and making sure it happens throughout the district.
Mrs. Curtis, you have already alluded to my next question, but we we have several programs that basically overlap each other simply because of a priority to spend funds instead of using them to directly impact student learning. What ideas do you have on implementing ways to focus Selma City Schools priorities directly on our students?
When we look at programs that are overlapping, I would say if it's not working, then we need to get rid of it. We have been known in education, and not just in education, but I would say we're guilty in Selma City. We have lots of programs, and those programs are not necessarily effective. So looking at the data and our expected outcomes, those are desired outcomes, and if it's not working, don't use it. Because a lot of times we have too many programs, and what I've seen it happen happens in the district, our teachers are overwhelmed because of so many programs. And when teachers are overwhelmed, you know how the saying, feed your teachers so they won't eat the students? Well, when teachers are overwhelmed, that's what starts to happen. We're not focused on anything. We're a jack of many trades, but not mastering anything. And in our district, we have to get rid of some of the programs and allow the teachers to work a program with fidelity. Then we will see increases.
My next question for you, Mrs. Curtis. In the past 5 years, Selma City Schools has lost a lot of teachers and personnel for various reasons. How can we implement programs that value employees while maintaining our focus on student achievement? Yes, ma'am. In the past 5 years, Selma City Schools has lost a lot of teachers and personnel for various reasons. How can we implement programs that value employees while maintaining our focus on student achievement?
Thank you, Ms. O. I would say we must have mentoring programs and strengthen those mentoring programs. When teachers come in, new teachers come in, we do have mentoring programs in the system, but look at strengthening those programs. If we're losing so many teachers, why is it that we're still losing them? Making sure we have exit interviews with those teachers to see why they're leaving. And when we get that information, compile that information, that's data. Whether it's qualitative or quantitative, that's data that can drive our next steps and actually addressing the problems. If we see that there's a problem and we don't address it, the behavior does not change. So addressing the problem once we find out in those exit interviews. Also, to maintain that focus on student achievement, have incentives for the teachers. Allow teachers to earn incentives, bonuses based on academic success, and also their attendance, and make sure it's systemic. Because I think that's another thing, we have to have cohesiveness in our district, making sure that's district-wide. Those incentives, the attendance, teachers love to be rewarded, just like all of us like to be rewarded. So have those incentive programs in place and support the principals in creating norms at the buildings. That's also important. All of this will promote cohesiveness that's needed in our district. And I wanted to say too, Ms. O, with those funds that we talked about, instead of those overlapping programs or spending money on programs, put people in the buildings, interventionists that we know our schools so desperately need. We need human capital is beneficial, and we need interventionists in our schools versus programs, because programs don't drive the instruction of people, the teachers. A program is only as good as the person who's delivered it. And so our teachers need more support. I say that as a building leader myself.
Okay. This is under student affairs number 2. Mrs. Curtis, describe your ability to cultivate a disciplined, safe, and orderly school environment for students.
Okay. So, I do want to, if you will look in the portfolio, if you will look in the section page 9, school improvement of the portfolio. And I'm just going to go there. And this is part of my 90-day plan as well. So we established policies, procedures, expectations, restorative practices, and innovative course offerings at Hudson resulted in not only improved student attendance and discipline data, but in an improvement of the school's culture and climate. And overall perception of R.B. Hudson. This is my 3rd year at Hudson, and I'm grateful for the shift, the culture shift that has taken place. And if you look here, and let me make sure, Ms. Hauser, to cultivate a discipline. Repeat your question one more time. Okay, and so at R.B. Hudson, our survey data showed that the perception had changed. Our student enrollment and word of mouth, also our attendance improved. If you look at the data I have at the very bottom, our attendance improved from average daily attendance from 93.52 to 95.61 in 7th grade. And in 8th grade, from 93.74 to 95.02, our tardies decreased. Also, other notable achievements included discipline data, which improved by, I want to say, our discipline data improved by 67%. It decreased. My first year at R.B. Hudson, well, the year before, I took leadership at R.B. Hudson. Office referrals, there were 347, if you look at page 9, office referrals. With restorative practices in place, happening in all of our buildings, restorative conversations in my office, training for the teachers on restorative practices, discipline decreased, office referrals decreased to 114, that's 67%. Our absences decreased as well by 27%. The number of fights on our campus also decreased tremendously. And today, this year, we've had 88 office referrals, so that's another 22% decrease from 2019, because we know with COVID, the pandemic, we have not, this is our first year back into the school. So my ability and my experience and results at R.B. Hudson speaks for me being able to have an ability to cultivate a disciplined and safe, orderly school environment for students. Also, I would say the same for School of Discovery. In order to impact achievement, we must first change the culture. And that's what happened at School of Discovery as well as R.B. Hudson. There were some things that we did, boots on the ground, to change the culture to impact student achievement.
What is the role of extracurricular activities other than athletics in the educational program? And how do you feel about no pass, no participate?
I'm going to take a bottom-up approach here. No play sets a standard. And for me, it's needed to guide and motivate and prioritize academic success. Everyone has to be on one accord. if we're going to improve data and student achievement in Selma City. And that's from athletics all the way down. With our extracurricular activities, I would say we have lots of extracurricular activities at Hudson. My first year there, and knowing the discipline and the culture, one thing that I prided myself in doing with Team Hudson is making sure we afforded every scholar on our campus an extracurricular activity. That was important to make them feel like they belong, a part of. Because when children are involved, our scholars are involved in extracurricular activities, they're less prone to drop out of school. They feel connected to the school. They normally have one trusting adult because they're involved in that activity, and we keep them. For me, extracurricular activities kept me out of trouble. All of my years in school, I was involved in extracurricular activities, whether it was band, choir, robotics, FBLA. So those non-athletic extracurricular activities, gardening, art, allow students to learn the values of teamwork as well. Individual and group responsible competitions, diversity. It allows diversity and helps them develop a sense of culture and also community. It provides them also with methods of reinforcing real-world application experiences. So they're very important in our district. And believe it or not, it helps with recruitment, improving attendance, because parents look to see what's offered at this school for my child. Of course, we want to decrease our failures and our dropout rates, so we got to get our scholars connected.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis. Next question. What steps would you take to increase student enrollment and decrease student loss? You kind of touched on it now. And give us some examples of times you have been successful in a similar effort and what were the outcomes?
Increasing student enrollment and decreasing student loss. Again, definitely those extracurricular activities. But I will also say we have to seek input from our student voices. What are our scholars saying about our schools? Because they're going to be honest. What are our parents saying? And then our staff through surveys. Survey them and see what they are saying. What is the community saying? Social media. What are they saying? Also, we have to go back to conducting exit interviews with families who left Selma City schools to see why they left and address those problems for them leaving if there was, in fact, they left because there was a problem. Again, offer those more programs, curriculum choices and extracurricular activities, athletic and non-athletic, surrounding the district and our schools and surrounding private and charter schools. Make school safety a priority. Definitely. Parents want to know that their scholars, their children are safe when they leave them in our care. So making sure that our scholars are safe, as well as consistent district-wide expectations and procedures to address students with chronic behavior issues, because that's a lot of the talk as well. We have a lot of behavior issues, so we must address them. I remember in the district, you all were talking about the alternative learning school needed to be open and running. That is true. We must have an alternative placement when it's needed, so we must have options. Improving the climate and culture of our schools through consistent district-wide customer service as well, and positively promoting the district by continuing to highlight the accomplishments. I would also say address concerns about cafeteria food. That should be a happy place for our scholars. When I was in school, that was a happy place for me. So if our scholars are going all day without eating, that's a problem. For me as an administrator, I was very disheartened when I went into the cafeteria and scholars don't eat all day. Well, that's going to affect their performance. So addressing the concerns about cafeteria food, collaborating with even like Selma High alumni. I know I've seen several times where they want to help the high school collaborate with the high school to build a stadium for our high school, where our scholars deserve that. They deserve the best. We should have our own stadium. Those are some things that I commit to doing if chosen as your next superintendent, to help increase student enrollment and get our parents, our families to come back to Selma City Schools, because they see the good things that are happening.
My question comes under business and finance, Ms. Curtis. What do you see as the superintendent's role in budgeting and fiscal management, the board, the principal, and the faculty?
The superintendent's role in budgeting and fiscal management is to collaborate with our CSFO to ensure that the budget is balanced and aligned to academic and district needs, those priorities that we will identify based on our data. To make sure that's aligned by collaborating with our CSFO before it's at the board. After which the board, of course, has to approve contracts, certain expenditures. The superintendent also approves all the and P-card purchases. I know that very well, because I wait for those signatures from the superintendent. The board approves the budget that's recommended or presented, and contracts and expenditures. And I want to say, I do remember it was a certain amount that, in attending the board meetings, I don't remember the amount, but a certain amount that had to be brought to the board to be approved before it was spent. So the contracts and, of course, those expenditures, that was for the board. If it's not allocated in the budget, that is for the board. And for principals, we align the budget to the continuous improvement plan and ensure funds are spent according to the allocation. We ensure proper paperwork is approved prior to spending. The instructional fee money is different, but prior to spending our state enhancement funds, our title funds, and of course our title funds. We also encourage the teachers to go ahead and spend their instructional fee money, or they can pool it, or she will find good use for it. The faculty develop and serve budget committee each year. I think you did mention faculty. So the faculty, each year, the faculty, those who will serve on the budget committee. The budget committee meets with myself and others, and we decide what the money will be spent on. We outline it, and that's how we spend money throughout the year. So that's the faculty. They determine our needs and how we spend.
Next question. How important do you feel it is for the superintendent to be actively engaged in the community and schools? How would you ensure that students, parents, and faculty needs are heard, addressed, and aligned to the district's priorities? Give an example that evidences your experience in this area.
Okay, I do have community engagement is also a part of the portfolio. If you want to turn to page 8 is one, and also kind of touch on it as well on page 7. So it is very important, community engagement, for the superintendent to be actively engaged in the community and in the schools, which is something I pride myself in doing at R.D. Hudson. Very important, community, curriculum, and character. So community engagement plays a vital role in the success of the superintendent and the well-being of the school system. We cannot operate in silos. We need our community need us. They need to hear from us and know what our needs are in order to be able to support us. So I would say that I would ensure that student, parent, and faculty needs are heard, addressed, and aligned to district priorities by involving them in a sustained effort. So the effort has to be sustained to design and implement a plan of action that addresses long-standing conflicts, issues that we've had in the district, and disconnections. Any disconnections between individual schools, several city schools, and the community. How would I do that? I think you asked for an example. Evidence my experience. Forming a task force that's composed of community, stakeholders, educators. This task force will be broken down into multiple design teams. I've done this before, which will share concerns and help develop recommendations for improvements. So task force, putting parents, the community, involving them in decision making at the school level and hearing what they have to say. Because again, it takes a village. We cannot operate in silos. Those days are over.
This is under community relations, number 3. Mrs. Curtis, based on what you know about this community and school district, what challenges do you believe our district faces right now?
The challenges that our district face right now, one, I would say, definitely is academic deficits. That would be the number one challenge that we face at this time. We know that COVID happened, that was out of our control, but we do have a lot of deficits. We went into COVID with lots of academic gaps, and we definitely came out of COVID with greater achievement gaps. So that would be one. Also, and we are a learning organization. We're a school. So academic achievement has to be at the forefront. It must be first and foremost. As well, we see everything that's going on in the world. When I look at our schools currently, and I talked with our operations director, we were collaborating about some things. Our doors currently, all of our classroom doors, I know at R.B. Hudson, locked from the outside. Well, that is an issue. If there's an intruder and your door is locked from the outside, that has to be addressed. Also, having a system where we buzz our teachers, everyone has a card, or they're buzzed in so that our external doors are locked. So safety would be a concern, and it's a challenge in the district, and also parental involvement. I can't say enough about parental involvement. We must include our parents in order to see the growth that we need to see. Whatever we have to do, that's going to them. And I don't think you asked me how. You just asked me what are the challenges. Okay.
My final question for you, Mrs. Curtis, is how can the several city schools become more cohesive and systemic with regards to educational practices?
Cohesiveness is also vital to seeing the academic achievements that we want to see and desire in our district. And I would say definitely human capital. Our instructional coaches, professional learning, and selecting the right people to be a part of the team is very important. To be a part of teams throughout the district. that would make changes in the district. We must have representation from all of our schools. Organization for more cohesiveness. Organization, developing processes, collecting and analyzing and using data effectively, identifying and addressing barriers outside of the school. Also leadership. Leadership matters. So we must have procedures, agreed upon procedures, and devise solutions to predicted challenges. We can't be reactive. So many times we are reactive versus being proactive. So predict the challenges that we know may arise and be proactive in putting measures in place for cohesiveness and being systematic with regards to our educational practices.
Mrs. Curtis, can you just elaborate a little bit more on being systemic? Because that's one of the areas when the state intervention team came in and they kept saying, we're all over the place in Selma. What would you do as superintendent to make us more systemic?
One thing for sure is clear expectations, clear, precise, and make sure that everyone understands those expectations. I know in the district currently we have employee expectations of excellence. Making sure we just not push down a piece of paper, but our employees understand what it looks like, what it does not look like, and also monitoring that. I think in order for you to see any changes, you have to inspect whatever you expect. So definitely monitoring those changes, and also making sure that I am very visible as a superintendent and connected. A lot of times there's a disconnect. Making sure that I am in the schools, seeing these expectations that we outline as a team, seeing and making sure that they are happening. And if it's not happening, addressing it. Where it is happening and happening very well, let's take a trip over here. Let's see how it's done over here. And I can hold the building for the day so that that principal or that teacher or whoever, wherever those pockets of excellence are in the district, allowing others to go who may need that professional growth, allowing them to go and see that in action. It's imperative that we are systemic in what we're doing in the system. And also having that's the importance of having those instructional rounds, safety rounds, and you as board members being a part of those teams to go in and inspect what we expect and make sure that our approaches are very systematic and intentional.
Okay, Ms. Curtis, the last question. Eliminating the achievement gap is a must. What approaches would you take to pursue this? That's one question. The second question is, what leadership and guidance would you provide to ensure these approaches are properly evaluated and adjusted over time to meet the changing needs of our students?
So I do want to call your attention to, when we talk about eliminating achievement gaps. And I agree, it is a must. I want to go to here for a second. When you look at the district, the current district status, 88.5% of our population is economically disadvantaged. And I think we must examine the expected academic, mental, and social emotional outcomes and data according to ACAP, DIBELS, ACT work keys, iReady, to evaluate district programs that address the needs of the whole child in a very targeted approach. And that's one thing that I pride myself in. I am in the community. Parents know me. And so being able to relate to our economically disadvantaged population is definitely something that I'm able to do. As far as enrollment decline in our district, 22%, and it's according to the state website. So 22% in a five-year enrollment decline was 22%. So I would say that we need to increase enrollment by being intentional about ensuring that our parents and our scholars have access to quality instruction, making sure our teachers know the standards and they focus on teaching the standards and provide professional development where our teachers do not understand the standards, where they need support, making sure we provide their professional development. Also, making sure that our environments are safe and conducive facilities for learning. Those healthy and appealing nutrition programs that I talked about. Athletics, we must have to increase that enrollment. And these are things looking at the district for academic achievement, looking at the status that we are in now. Winning tradition in athletics and extracurricular offerings that prepare our scholars for college and career opportunities. Also, eliminate extra programs. Our parent and school partnership, and continue again educate our parents. Our feeder school, we must have our schools and vertical planning across grade levels is very important to moving our data. Also, when you look at our English language arts proficiency, 22.5, that must be addressed. I would say we need to evaluate our school level personal effective programs and strategic examining classrooms that are effectively raising the ELA proficiency, attach incentives and bonuses to teachers who are excelling, have high proficiency rates, because that means they are doing some good teaching. So attach incentives and bonuses to our teachers who are producing those activities that we want to see. Also, I would say that making sure that our reading foundations, phonological awareness, yes, you guys can hear me. Phonological awareness, phonics, and high frequency words, making sure there's a solid foundation to increase our ELA proficiency at our elementary school level. And critical thinking skills, improving our scholars' critical thinking skills. Starting with pre-K, they are sponges, they can learn. Starting with pre-K, putting those problems before our scholars. We recently earned STEM certification just Friday for the next 5 years at R.D. Hudson. And what I've learned is project-based learning works. Giving our scholars using the engineering design process across the district, making it more engagement and allowing our scholars to identify a problem and go through those steps, very real problems, go through those steps at solving those problems. Those are the types of activities that will develop their critical thinking skills and help, I believe, help improve our ELA proficiency. Also, math proficiency was 2.3%. That's a problem. We have, I would say, the need to fully utilize our math coaches as a resource to our teachers, to our students, to our parents, in a very systemic manner. Reevaluate our programs that we're using. I know for secondary, from 6 through 12, we're using A+ college ready. Reevaluate our programs on all levels, elementary and secondary. If it's not giving us the desired outcomes, if it's not the program, look at how it's being delivered, the instructional, how it's delivered in the classrooms. And also, are we being very data-driven and intentional in our practices? I go back to, we must be a data-driven district where everything data drives all of our decisions. And identifying, making sure our teachers know those math standards. So when I look at that low percentage of proficiency, that tells me that there may be a problem with understanding those standards. So making sure our teachers know how to break those standards down and really teach them to our scholars. And if they don't, getting them the support they need. With our math coaches, professional development, identifying again the pockets of excellence at each school for modeling, peer observations, mentoring, and also professional development opportunities in effective math instruction classes. And I hope I answered all of your questions, because
That was a tough one. In our closing questions, Ms. Curtis, what do you think has been your most outstanding contribution to your present or most recent school system?
I would say, and I want you to turn to page 9. Looking at school improvement, I have been able to go in and serve as a turnaround principal since I've been in the district. Student achievement, if you look at page 7, R.B. Hudson was identified as a model school in 2021. We presented on the national level. Also, we were declared in 2020, we were declared named a school of distinction and class banner school for our STEM implementation, across the district. And that's where I was telling you, every scholar in our school was attached to at least 3 extracurricular activities every Friday. And we were identified and highlighted for that. Also, we were awarded, again, the CAGNIA STEM certification for the next 5 years. And this year, we're excited. We were able to offer our 8th graders an opportunity to take the pre-ACT, which will help our high school and will prepare them for high school and change the proficiency levels at our high school with our middle schoolers taking the pre-ACT. We even have a scholar score of 26 on the pre-ACT. Also being able to go in and establish frameworks and structures into a school and help shift the culture and see increases. My involvement in the community, my stability in the district, my vested interests. I have 4 children who are products of Selma City Schools, 3 who are currently in Selma City Schools, 1 who graduated already. I am a product of Selma City Schools. So, stability, longevity to the system. The district has had, I want to say, 8 superintendents since Dr. Carter left. And Dr. Carter was here for 17 years. Our community, our parents, our scholars, our families are saying they want stability in Selma City school system. They want someone who's involved in the community, someone they know and trust. And I do believe that that has been one of my strengths in the district, being able to partner with the community or faith-based organizations, churches, etc., and improve what we're doing in our school system. At R.B. Hudson, the schools that I've led, and I want to do that district-wide if given the opportunity.
Are there any questions that you would like to ask of us for this time?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. My first question I have, what are you looking for in a superintendent? What are you looking for in a superintendent?
Any like to take that question? Feel free.
I'll go. I know that a school superintendent is very important for them to have a vested interest in their district. One thing that I'm looking for in a superintendent is stability as well as an instructional leader. In a lot of our meetings, Ms. O referred to a lot of things that we get as cutesy stuff. We don't need cutesy stuff, we need boots on the ground. A person that's doing what's in the best interest of our students, because at the end of the day, that's what we're charged to do. We're charged to educate our children and give them the best education possible because they're our future. And so we need some innovation that's systemic, and everyone's on board with that innovation. Not just because it's your idea, we're gonna do this. We need all stakeholders, buy-in, that type of thing. So that's what I'm looking for in a superintendent. Anybody else?
Ms. O.
Well, I'm looking for, good leadership in a superintendent. This has been really, heartbreaking what we have had to go through. But as you look at it on the outside, you say, oh, everything is good, that's a great superintendent, everything is just going awesome. But look at the data. Even if you go up from 10 to 21, that means you have 79% of your children who are failing, who are below grade level. So I want a realist. I want somebody to say, that's not good enough. Keep pushing, keep pushing. We have to get this right because we're doing our children a disservice.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're kind of pushed for time at this time. Do you have any other questions? Did you have to ask
I
more?
just had one more. I just wanted to speak to Ms. O. I know the pain and hurt in our district, in our community, and it's very real. And no, our scores, that proficiency level is not okay. And if you look at my page 2 of the core values, encouragement, that's one of my strengths. And my daily motto is keep going. And Ms. O, I agree, we have to keep pushing and we have to do, our scholars deserve better than this. I am embarrassed when I look at our low proficiency rates. And the superintendent must be boots on the ground in every school. That must be a priority. My last question. Okay. Anyone else?
Okay. Well, Ms. Curtis, we want to thank you for agreeing to participate, and first of all, for being a finalist for this position. We want to thank you. You've enlightened us with all of your answers, and we're excited about this process. And we want to again thank you for being one of the finalists. And we have 4 more candidates to interview, and we'll let you know what happens over the next couple of days. So thank you so much. This is a great interview. Thank you.